Faith is the strongest source of all magic, and magicians consider their followers as their lighthouses. The more beacons a magician gathers around him, the greater their power becomes. But in an age when science and logic rule, and money is paramount, mages quickly began to fade into the past. Even in such times, one fire mage remained at the pinnacle of his power. He held an eternal flame in his hand. It only meant that somewhere out there, he still had a beacon of unwavering faith in him. When he first saw that lighthouse, everything made sense to him. He knew it was her. Charlotte de Perrault's fate was confused from the beginning. One would assume that she would be bathed in gold and jewels. The Perrault family is very rich and influential, but for Charlotte, it was only an illusion, and all the vicissitudes of fate she owed to her wretched father, Albert, the meanest bastard poisoning the house of Perrault. This incorrigible bastard was known for many troubles. Among them was an uncontrollable attraction to women. Seeing that his own son was desecrating the reputation of his family, Count Perrault put him away from high society. He arranged a wedding with a young girl named Melissa Laurent, the daughter of a neighboring baron who had no idea who Albert really was. She had too high hopes for her future, but her dreams were shattered on her wedding night, when she caught her husband in his study with his maid. It was the first madness she was to experience. At first, he asked for forgiveness, swearing that his heart belonged only to her. But a little later, he began to accuse her of obsession and madness. Then the Earl pressed his son to have a child. He thought it would change the wayward son. But of course, Charlotte could not change his destructive tendencies. I want them all dead. This was Albert's main thought. Charlotte's mother was driven to the limit and began to take her despair out on her daughter. Count Perrault was the only person who could save Charlotte, but he kept silent and turned a blind eye to her suffering. What is past is past. I am no longer the suffering girl. The girl reflected on her life, standing not at the somber ceremony on the occasion of the Count's death. It was time to say goodbye. Rest in peace. You have left me the only joy I have waited so long for. Thank you, grandfather. After the funeral, everyone gathered to hear the last will and testament of the deceased Earl. Charlotte stood apart from the others and heard whispers behind her. The girl looked at her mother and other family members, radiant with joy. She knew not to expect decency from them. They began to read the will. Before I leave this world, I redistribute all my possessions and powers. First, I transfer the title of Count of Perrault. Stop, you ungrateful creatures. Charlotte's father burst into the room. Albert began to resent how they dared to read the will without the presence of the true future heir. The rest of the family also responded with indignation. Where have you been all this time, Albert? He missed even his own father's funeral. Suddenly, among the crowd of relatives, he saw his daughter. It's been a long time, my precious Charlotte. You are still as beautiful as ever, said Albert as he approached the gloomy girl. I could give myself a real feast if I had successfully sold you. They went on to read the old Earl's last will and testament. He severed all ties with his wretched son, hoping it would bring him back to reality. The Count believed that his son was not worthy to bear the name of Perrault unless he repented. But this arrogant idiot did nothing, knowing that he was the only male member of the Perrault bloodline. Your time is up, you old bastard, and now your prodigal son has returned. The woman continued reading and got to the point. I pass on the title of Count of Perrault to the only person who has remained faithful to me during this difficult time. My granddaughter Charlotte de Perrault will from this day forward be known as Countess Charlotte Brabant de Perrault. What did you say, old witch? She's not even married. Albert was very angry when he heard his father's last will. It's tradition that there must be a child. Any heir to the house of Perrault had to have children to ensure the indisputable continuity of his name and title. But her father did not know that this clause had been changed 5 years ago. He would have known if he had ever attended the annual meeting. Albert wanted already to make a scandal and punish his daughter for such insolence, but he was asked to shut up. That wasn't all. He had calmed down because he thought the family fortune would go to him anyway. The title to the estate and its dues belonged to the Countess. The rest of the family has no privileges. Therefore, I order my daughter-in-law to leave the manor immediately. If you disobey, you'll be sent to a mental institution. All rights to 150 acres of Perrault land, to all property, 45 million gold in possession of real estate, namely the mansions in the capital, will be transferred to the daughter of my son Albert. All the power and might of the House of Parole was inherited by a 21-year-old girl. "This is madness," Albert yelled in rage. "You bitch, what have you done?" He lunged at his daughter in a rage, but the guards blocked his path in time. He yelled that it was all supposed to be his, by birthright, and she deserved nothing. The girl explained to her father that his name had been struck off the register of peers and barons. It meant that he was no longer of noble birth. "You bewitched my father." Albert did not want to believe that he was left with nothing. The girl didn't take long to slap him in the face. "Treat me with respect. I am Countess Parole." After a while, Albert was sitting in the tavern. All his thoughts were occupied with only one thing. This couldn't have happened. His father would never do that to him. The last countess had insisted on Albert's birth, despite his failing health. Her insistence on continuing the Parole lineage silenced even the objecting count. A few years later she died, leaving little Albert behind. Count Parole was very sorry for his son. He gave Albert everything he wanted. So what? Sometimes carried away debauchery. Justified himself father of Charlotte. One of the gifts of his parents was his unfading beauty. All his life the noble ladies called Albert reborn Apollo. They constantly surrounded him in the hope of at least a few short phrases. What did I have to do with it if they were in love with me? His father had always forgiven him, no matter what he'd done in the past. How could he cut him out of his will? "Shit, Charlotte, you little brat." Albert wanted to teach her a lesson at all costs. He never thought his daughter would stab him in the back. Maybe I was too soft on her. Albert, already quite drunk, noticed that the drink had run out and started yelling at the whole tavern, demanding more. "Are you deaf?" I said, "more beer." The landlord came up to him and warned him that if Albert didn't pay up, he'd have to call the town guard. Albert had already escaped without paying for his drink last time. The only reason he let him come back was because of his noble name. Albert scuffled a bit, fell face down on the bar, and fell asleep. Suddenly a stranger walked in and went straight for Albert. "Wake up and sing, princess." He grabbed him. The stranger has been looking for him in this godforsaken city for a very long time. "You promised to pay what you owed." In a threatening tone, he said to the frightened Albert. He did not even want to hear another excuse. He wanted his money and the interest. Albert had promised to pay it all on time, because he thought he would be heir to the Parole property. He would never have gotten into this mess if his mother were still alive. She would have given everything she had to save him from this hell. It's all because of that snake. She must have manipulated his father to turn him against her. The stranger threatened to sell him for organs on the black market if he had no money. Albert couldn't die like that. "Hey, do you know who you're talking to?" He tried to get out of the situation somehow. "I'm Albert de Parole." "You're no longer a member of the House of Parole. Now you're just Albert, without a last name." Suddenly, the stranger answered. How the hell does he know who he is and why he is aware of the inner workings of the House of Parole? Albert realized that his life was now in the hands of this terrible man. He was willing to do anything to preserve his life. The stranger reluctantly gave him one last chance to repay his debt. Albert had an idea. His father had indicated in his will that the entire fortune would go to Albert's daughter. The old earl had named Charlotte only in the title deed. Fortunately for Albert, she was not his only daughter. Cara Galestorm, a name you would have known and feared if you had come her way. As soon as she turned 19, Cara became a free mercenary of high rank. She always stood out among her peers for her height. Still, no one was afraid of her because of it. As a child, Cara's mother left her with free mercenaries. She grew up among these men, a group of bloodthirsty, violent, and promiscuous men. She developed into a fierce fighter. No one allowed themselves to look down on her. She has been indoctrinated that the world is full of hands that are eager to take advantage of her, and she must cut them off in order to defend herself. Her rivals dared not challenge her to a duel. They knew they could lose their lives if they fell under her bad spirits. She reigned supreme for 10 years. Despite her character, fame brought her many opportunities. Preferred among the rest by her reputation and skills, she mostly worked as the personal bodyguard of noble ladies. Of course, escorting noble ladies brought in a good income and allowed her to spend most of her time in comfortable carriages, but she wanted some movement. Cara was sure she could not waste her talent and skills on these comfort-loving ladies. "I want the world to know about me." One ordinary day, a girl stood and pondered how tired she was of being a bodyguard. "Hey, Kara, you have visitors." She really didn't want to waste her time on another rich man again. Sometimes the sassy nobles wanted to test her skills or see if she was worthy of their grace. Surely it must have been one of those sarcastic jerks. Kara tried to refuse this meeting, but it turned out that these men had not come here to hire the girl. A private meeting? The girl was very surprised by this. The girl made her way to the guests, mentally already planning that she would wring their necks if it turned out to be a waste of her time. She entered. A very intimate picture unfolded before her eyes. "What the hell? This isn't a brothel, you perverts," she said, and covered her face with her hands. "Could you at least knock, Kara?" asked her a familiar female voice. When she opened her eyes, she saw her mother. The girl was very surprised to see her. Well. She was immediately flooded with childhood memories from the past. Her conversations with her mother when she was a little girl. "Do you know what the most important thing in a girl's life is?" Her mother asked her, and immediately answered her own question. "Money. Title and social status mean nothing if you don't have the wealth to support that lifestyle. Your father was surrounded by harlots who only wanted his title, but every one of them was sent away by the earl, so as not to spoil the family's reputation. The count was more than happy to pay him back when he heard of his humble request. One day the mother took the girl somewhere and on leaving said, 'I can no longer raise you. Your cold-blooded grandfather refuses to pay for your upkeep.' Kara couldn't understand why her mother couldn't at least leave her in a church or orphanage. Why the mercenary guild? Thanks to her selfish mother, girl was forced to endure countless dangers in a bloodthirsty sea of mercenaries. As she grew up, she made a promise to herself. 'When I find you again, mother, I will make you pay.' Kara's eyes gleamed predatorily, and she said with a frightening smile, 'I never thought I'd see your smug face again.' Any mercenary, seeing Kara smile like that, would either wet his pants or run away like a rat. For Kara only smiles when she is so angry that she is ready to spill blood. But this ignorant woman could not have known Kara's rage. Her mother laughed at her daughter's vulgar tone and said, 'Can you not be thankful that we are here to meet you?' Kara replied that after all this woman had done it was impudence to call herself her mother. 'I've been through hell because of you.' The mother got angry and started yelling that she wouldn't let the girl treat her mother that way. 'Keep talking, scum.' In her mind, Kara thought and asked about Alfred. 'And who the hell is this pale little weakling?' 'Pale? Pale? What?' His eyes filled with anger and resentment. All his life, he had accepted praise for his beauty, and she called him a little wimp. If she knew how hard it was to maintain that beautiful skin. His father decided he should teach that little brat some manners. He could not allow another Charlotte to rob him of his chance to reclaim his inheritance. Alfred started yelling at Kara, warning her to watch her mouth. 'Do you have any idea who you're talking to? I am your father, and I demand an apology for your insolence.' His yelling didn't scare the girl for a second. Apology? After he dumped her to save a few coins. At least this woman was with her until she was 9. That shirt came out of nowhere, and he wanted her to ask for his forgiveness. This enraged Kara even more, and with a confident step, she went to her father. First, she had to teach him a little lesson. He didn't even realize what was going on. He looked at his tall daughter and tried to calm down. He needed to show his father's authority. Moments later, Alfred was hit hard with his knee and howled in pain. Once he had recovered a little, Alfred started yelling again that he was the only heir to a great family, and would not allow himself to be treated that way. But money and title would not save him from the beating the girl was about to give him. 'You'll squeal like any other pig I ever dealt with. I know a great place to lay low for a while after I cut you into little pieces.' Alfred was really scared now. He realized this girl was even worse than Scar, to whom he owed money. She was supposed to be afraid of her father, but things didn't go according to plan. To save himself from Scar, Albert came up with a plan. The late Earlswell made it clear that his entire fortune would go to his son's daughter, which meant that Charlotte wasn't the only one who was entitled to a huge inheritance. As long as he could present his daughter, she would be entitled to an inheritance that would allow him to take it back later. Albert tracked down all his illegitimate children from the past, but the late Earl knew about them. He foresaw this behavior from Albert, and before he died he found all of his grandchildren, paid each of them to sign a waiver of inheritance rights. The Earl's diligent investigation missed one person, Kara. When Kara was born, her mother failed to put her name on the family registry. and then abandoned her to the mercenary guild when she was still young. No one from House Parole knew of her existence. Kara had had enough of that. She realized this man didn't even deserve her blade. "Why are you here?" she asked a frightened Alfred. He began to doubt whether she should tell the truth. She was capable of killing them and keeping everything to herself. "Oh, please don't tell me you're here to make it up to me. I have suffered all my life because of you." Mother and father saw that fearful look and strange smile again. "We are here to ask you to help us get your father's inheritance." The mother could not stand the tension and decided to tell everything quickly. "Shut your mouth, you silly girl." Alfred was indignant behind her back. She was breaking his plans even more. He regretted trusting this war from the start. Kara shouldn't have known he needed her to take his share of Charlotte's inheritance. Worse, Kara now knew that he had no right to demand the money from her once she got it. "Damn it, how am I supposed to pull this off now?" Kara now understood why he was here. He wanted to use her for his own benefit. All right, that's why we're here." Alfred didn't have time to think of anything and decided to talk her down. He began to explain that it was to Kara's advantage as well. She could be accepted as Lady of the House of Parole. Of course, if she acts according to his plan, and enjoy her father's enormous inheritance. All he asked for in return was a small part of it. A small part? Kara was sure he was lying and was going to steal it all for himself and run away again. "Come on, give me a little piece of it. I'm a man of my word." Alfred tried to reason with his daughter, but he heard back that you can't trust a man who's been turned down by his own father. Just accept your shitty fate and live your miserable life. Kara's words made him very sad. Alfred began to make excuses that it was all Charlotta's fault, who like a little snake had penetrated the old Earl's mind. His father would not have treated him if not for her. Alfred began to lie that he had done everything he could to give her the happiness she had, and Charlotte, in gratitude, stabbed him in the back and took everything for herself. She deserved it. "Please help me. Help me destroy Charlotte and get what is rightfully mine." Charlotte? The happiness she deserves? Kara thought hard. She realized that Count Parole gave Charlotte everything because he loved her, and the jerk seemed to treat his daughter with love and care. So she had a sister who had everything she could dream of, when Kara had to crawl into the pit of misery to survive another day. Kara had a smile on her face again. "This is unacceptable." The girl gave a powerful flick to her father and said in a cheerful voice, "All right, I'll help you get your revenge on Charlotte. But in the end, you won't get a single silver coin."